Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
Seated alone at a corner table in the office cafeteria, Ethan Walker stared at his familiar lunch spread: a bowl of soup, a sandwich, and a glass of milk. It was the same predictable trio he ate every weekday. While the soup and sandwich varied, the routine never wavered. His coworkers had long since learned to steer clear, aware that he had grown less sociable over time. At 41, Ethan had mastered the art of building walls around himself, shutting out the chaos of the world outside. He had little memory of his parents. They had died in a car accident on Valentine's Day when he was just 3 years old. His father, driving under the influence, lost control and slammed into a guardrail. The crash claimed both their lives instantly. Ethan spent his early years with his grandparents, who cared for him until he was nearly 11. When they could no longer manage, he was placed in foster care. Unlike many, Ethan was fortunate to find a home with Thomas and Lillian Monroe, older than most parents but kind and nurturing. They raised him as though he were their own child. Ethan earned a scholarship to Hawthorne University and, through a combination of determination and part-time jobs, successfully completed his education, graduating with a B.Sc. in mechanical engineering. His strong academic performance earned him a job offer from Westland Industries, located in his hometown. Joining the engineering department, Ethan collaborated with his colleagues on tasks like preventive maintenance, equipment upgrades, and modernizing the shop floor. He found the work both fulfilling and challenging. During his college years, Ethan met Emily Harper, a student a year behind him. Their relationship blossomed, and after waiting for her to graduate, Ethan proposed. Emily accepted enthusiastically, and the couple married in November. Their marriage was soon blessed with 2 sons, Nathan and Caleb, born just 15 months apart. With their growing family, Ethan and Emily purchased a modest suburban home, a 3-bedroom ranch-style house with a finished basement and a 2-car driveway. Since they both owned cars, Ethan's vehicle stayed outside, as he left early for work and returned late. Emily chose to be a stay-at-home mother, and Ethan's income comfortably supported their family, providing them with a solid middle-class lifestyle. Ethan and Emily raised their sons, Nathan and Caleb, to be responsible students and upstanding members of the community. Both boys were involved in scouting during their younger years but moved on as their interests shifted toward dating. They were active in school, played on the varsity soccer team, and maintained busy social lives typical of teenagers, including steady girlfriends. When the boys reached their mid-teens, Emily began expressing an interest in finding part-time work. Although she had a Bachelor of Arts degree, she lacked specific training for a particular field. Ethan was open to the idea but emphasized the importance of it not disrupting their home life. Emily reassured him it wouldn't. After several months of searching, Emily secured a part-time position as a sales assistant at a kitchen and bathroom remodeling business. Her role involved qualifying potential customers to determine their level of interest and directing them to the appropriate sales representative. She didn't need to be an expert, but Emily embraced the role with enthusiasm, quickly learning about the company's products. Within a few months, she had become well-versed in the business, and at her 6-month review, she received a pay raise and a written evaluation rating her performance as superior. From the start, Emily made it clear that her availability was limited to weekdays until 5 p.m., as she had a household to manage and meals to prepare for her family. Initially, her employer was fine with these terms. However, 18 months after her glowing review, Emily began to face increasing pressure to work on Saturdays, the busiest day of the week. At first, Emily resisted the idea, but when her manager sweetened the deal by offering her a salary plus commission, the potential financial gain became hard to ignore. The prospect of earning significantly more caught her attention. "Ethan, can we talk after dinner?" she asked. "Sure. What's it about?" he replied. "An opportunity one really don't want to pass up." "Okay," he said cautiously. Later, once the dishes were loaded into the dishwasher, they sat down at the kitchen table to talk. "I've been offered the chance to switch to salary plus commission instead of just a salary," Emily began. "Could mean a lot more income for me, and for us because my sales have been doing so well." "That sounds promising," Ethan said, still unsure where the conversation was headed. But we're doing fine financially, honey. Your salary already covers the boys' college fund with extra to spare. How much more are we talking about? Could be about 30% more, she said, her face lighting up with excitement. That's a significant increase, Ethan acknowledged. What's the catch? Well, I'd have to start working on Saturdays, Emily admitted hesitantly. Oh, Ethan said, nodding slowly. That means we'd only have 1 day a week together. No, not at all, Emily countered quickly. I'd still be home every night and here for breakfast in the morning. It's just Saturdays I'd be at work. So what do we usually do on Saturdays? Ethan asked. Well, we go shopping, grab lunch together, the usual, she replied. Exactly, Ethan said. The usual being that we spend time together, unwind from the week, and talk about things. Places we want to go or things we want to do. We can still do that on Sundays, Emily said, her tone now carrying a hint of frustration. Ethan fell silent for a moment, clearly deep in thought. Would it make any difference if I asked you not to take the job? He asked, his gaze steady as he looked into Emily's eyes. You'd actually do that? Stop me from trying to better myself? She replied, her voice rising. Ethan shook his head. This isn't about self-improvement, Emily, and you know it. It's about recognition and reward, and that always comes at a cost. What are you even talking about? She asked, her frustration growing. With every opportunity to earn more, there's more pressure to deliver. Soon, your boss will expect you to stay late to finish tasks that can't wait. Before you know it, your time won't feel like your own anymore. Emily's expression darkened. Just say it, Ethan. Are you going to support me in this or not? I'm not trying to stop you, he said calmly. I'd never stand in the way of what you think is important. But I need you to understand how this will affect our family and the little time we already have together. I think you're making this a bigger deal than it really is. She snapped, her tone defensive. Admit it, you just don't want me working on Saturdays. Maybe you don't even want me working at all. With that, Emily pushed back her chair and stormed out of the kitchen. Ethan sighed heavily and leaned back in his seat. He had known from the start that Emily would take the job, but it didn't make him feel any better about it. What troubled him most wasn't just the job itself, but her dismissive attitude toward his concerns about their family life. The increasing importance she seemed to place on money unsettled him, and he couldn't shake the bad feeling that this decision would drive a wedge between them. For now, he knew he'd have to let it play out. Anything else would risk an even bigger conflict. The next day at lunch, Ethan was startled when a young woman sat down across from him at his usual solitary table. He looked up, recognizing her vaguely but not knowing her name. Hi, you're Ethan Walker, right? She asked brightly. Yes, that's me, he replied, nodding. I'm Olivia Bennett. I work in HR, she said with a warm smile. I'm in engineering, he responded, still unsure where this was going. Yeah, I know. I handled the updates to your life insurance and 401k, Olivia added. Nice to meet you, Olivia, Ethan said, offering her a faint smile before turning his attention back to his lunch. I couldn't help but notice you always sit alone. Does it bother you that I joined you? She asked. No, not at all, Ethan replied. I'm just not much of a socializer. Most people find me boring since I don't contribute much to office gossip or whatever the hot topic of the day is. Ethan glanced at the woman across from him for the first time, taking in her appearance. She was around 56 and carried about 25 extra pounds, most of it appearing to be concentrated in her hips and thighs. She had a round face framed by shoulder-length auburn hair, a clear complexion, a cheerful smile, and a pleasant voice. Her lunch looked like the stereotypical diet meal, salad, tea, and yogurt. I'm sorry to hear about your divorce, she said after a stretch of silence. I'm not, Ethan replied matter-of-factly. Her eyebrows shot up in surprise. Why not? I made a mistake in judgment, and it needed to be corrected, he said bluntly. Oh, she said, a little taken aback. I'm sorry, I shouldn't pry. I know better, especially since I deal with so much sensitive information in my job. Ethan smirked faintly. From the gossip I hear around here, it doesn't seem like there are many secrets left in this place. She chuckled softly. Speaking of gossip, I heard you turned down a promotion last week. You heard right, he said, unfazed. Can I ask why? Or is that none of my business? He laughed briefly. It's technically none of your business, but I don't mind telling you. The reason's purely financial. Sure, the promotion came with a nice raise, but once I worked out how much of that would go straight to taxes, I realized I wouldn't be much better off. On top of that, I'm pretty sure my ex-wife has a couple of spies in this place. The moment they heard about the raise, her lawyer would be coming after me for higher alimony. So, when you add it all up, it's just not worth the trouble. Olivia said, looking genuinely disheartened. That's unfortunate. No, don't feel bad for me. Ethan replied with a reassuring smile. I'm doing just fine. I've made peace with everything that's happened and I'm dealing with it. In the not-too-distant future, I'll be back on track. My sons will be in college, and my ex-wife will have to manage on whatever she and her boyfriend can afford. Life moves on. What's a paramour? She asked, her curiosity piqued. An old-fashioned term for a boyfriend, Ethan explained. In this case, my ex-wife is still living in what used to be our house, while her boyfriend is stuck in a fairly ordinary apartment since his wife kicked him out. She can't let him move in with her for 2 reasons. First, my lawyer is keeping a close eye on her. If she tries it, he'll file to end her alimony for cohabitating. Second, my oldest son would probably beat the crap out of him if he set foot in the house. Doesn't sound like things are going well between your ex and your sons, Olivia said cautiously. The relationship is strained, to say the least, Ethan admitted. As soon as they get the chance, they'll probably move out. That'll happen once they're in college and living on campus. Fortunately, they've got a solid fund to cover their expenses, unless they aim for something ambitious like Yale or Stanford. For now, they've told me they're planning to attend Redwood University and stay close to home. I talk to them regularly, and I know they're doing okay. She glanced at her watch. I've got to run. I'm due back at my office. Picking up her tray, she stood and turned to leave but paused, turning back toward Ethan. Would you mind if I joined you for lunch again sometime? Ethan shook his head. No, not at all. Feel free. Just know I'm not the most exciting company. I have a feeling you'll surprise me, she said with a smile before heading off. Ethan checked his own watch. He still had about 10 minutes before he needed to be back at work. Most days he'd have a half hour to spare after lunch, and on nice days he'd take a walk around the building for some fresh air and exercise. Today, though, he stayed put thinking about Olivia Bennett. She was the first person to openly ask about his personal life, even though almost everyone in the plant knew about his situation. Was she being curious or nosy? Maybe a bit of both. Time would reveal her intentions. It didn't take long for Ethan to notice the changes once Emily began working Saturdays. Within a month, her weekday hours started stretching later and later, and she often brought work home with her. It was exactly as he had predicted. Success brought higher expectations. The increased income was significant, sure, but so were the demands on her time. Emily seemed energized by her accomplishments and thrilled with the recognition she was receiving. She talked endlessly about her work, her enthusiasm bubbling over. For Ethan, however, the price of her success was becoming all too clear. At first, Emily's new job responsibilities brought an unexpected boost to their intimacy. She became the initiator, and Ethan had to admit it was a surprisingly enjoyable side effect. But as the months went on, Emily was given even more responsibilities. She was now assigned to specific contractors, which brought greater opportunities but also a heavier workload. The one silver lining was that she could do some of the work from home, so at least she was physically present, even if she wasn't fully available to Ethan or the kids. As their personal time together dwindled again, so did their intimacy. Emily often came home too tired or was still buried in work by the time Ethan went to bed. When he tried to talk to her about it, she brushed it off with vague reassurances and hollow promises that were rarely kept. Ethan could clearly see the deterioration in their relationship and began to wonder how to address it. One such moment came on the day of Caleb's 16th birthday. They had planned to celebrate by taking Caleb and Nathan out to dinner at a nice restaurant. Ethan had made a reservation for 6:30 p.m. at the Copper Spoon, a trendy eatery that had once been a blacksmith's shop. But as 5:30 p.m. came and went with no sign of Emily, Ethan picked up his phone and called her cell. "Did you forget about Caleb's birthday?" Ethan asked, irritation clear in his voice when Emily finally answered. "Oh damn, "I'm sorry, honey," she replied, sounding distracted. "I'm in the middle of something, and I can't get away right now. Just go ahead without me. I'll meet you at the restaurant as soon as I can." "Yeah, okay. We'll see you when you get there," Ethan said curtly before hanging up, his frown deepening. "Everything all right, Dad?" Nathan asked from the back seat. "Yeah, I guess. Your mom's working late again. She said she'll meet us at the restaurant. Let's head out now so we don't miss the reservation." "Geez, what else is new?" Nathan muttered. "You'd think she runs the whole place or something." Ethan ignored his son's remark, not wanting to add fuel to the simmering tension. At the restaurant, they waited for nearly an hour for Emily to arrive, but eventually they had to order. Hunger outweighed their patience. The dinner passed in heavy silence, far from the lively atmosphere Ethan had envisioned for Caleb's big day. When the special birthday cake was brought out for dessert, they sang for Caleb, but the mood remained subdued. It was painfully clear Emily wasn't going to show up. Ethan paid the bill and drove the boys home in uncomfortable silence, their celebration dampened by disappointment. Emily finally walked through the door at 9:45 p.m., full of rushed apologies. "I'm so sorry I missed dinner," she said, dropping her bag on the counter. Her words were met with stony silence from both sons and Ethan. Their frustration was palpable. "What?" she said defensively, glancing around at their expressions. "I had work to do. I was busy." Her tone carried no trace of guilt or remorse. "Would it have been too much to ask for a quick phone call?" Ethan asked, his voice low but firm. "I lost track of time," she said dismissively. "Honestly, what's the big deal about a birthday dinner? He's 16, not some little kid. That's quite an attitude you've developed toward your family," Ethan said, rising from his seat and moving toward her. "It wasn't about the birthday, Emily. It was about one of those rare times when we could all be together." "Rare times?" she scoffed. "I'm home every night. Why are you blowing this out of proportion?" "Because it is a big deal," he replied, his voice firm. "When was the last time you were home in time to make dinner? Did you know that the boys and I are now the official cooks? Probably not, since you've been so absorbed in your own life that you haven't noticed. Most of the time, you don't even eat with us, despite us adjusting the dinner time to try and include you. I'm getting tired of you constantly criticizing my job," she snapped. "You've never supported what I want to do, and all you do is complain." "Well, I'm done with it. Do you want a divorce?" Ethan asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. He wasn't sure if he was ready to hear the answer. "What? Of course not. Why would you even ask that?" she replied, taken aback. "You're overreacting, Ethan." "Well, let me make one thing clear," he said, his tone serious. "I can't keep living in a marriage where I feel like I'm being controlled from a distance. Figure out what's important to you, Emily. Right now, it seems like your job is number one, and everything else, including your family, is coming in third." With that, Ethan walked to the bedroom and started getting ready for bed. He lay awake for almost an hour before sleep finally took over. Emily still hadn't come to join him. The following day, at lunch, Olivia greeted Ethan with her usual cheer. "Hello, Ethan. How are you today?" "Fine, Olivia. How are you?" "Same as always, just cruising through the day." "How are the boys?" "They're doing okay. Nathan is already settled into college, and Caleb is hoping to take summer classes to get ahead in his final year. He's planning to enroll in Redwood University with his brother for the second semester. And that would get them out of the house too," she said cautiously. "Definitely," Ethan replied with a small grin. "I always thought money would be the main motivator, but it turns out getting away from their mother is the real incentive." Olivia's expression shifted, and she looked sad for a moment. "That's really a shame. You know, they might regret that one day." "Maybe," Ethan said quietly. "But right now, they're angry at Emily for what she's done to this family. And to me. I can understand that," I guess. Olivia nodded. "She made the divorce as bitter as possible out of spite. She must have known her sons would take your side." "I'm not sure she did," Ethan replied. "I think she was so detached from reality that she truly believed we'd do anything to keep the family together. When she turned on me and unleashed everything, it really pushed Nathan and Caleb away. I still don't think she understands why." "Ethan, can I ask you something personal?" Olivia asked hesitantly. Ethan chuckled. Olivia, all your questions are personal. Go ahead. Do you think Emily cheated on you before you filed for the divorce? Ethan sighed, his tone serious. I don't know for sure. I'd hate to think she added that to the list of her other mistakes, but I have to face the possibility. I've heard some rumors, Olivia said carefully. You told me weeks ago that she didn't waste any time finding a new man. Ethan shrugged. It doesn't matter, Olivia. The marriage is over and nothing would have changed that. She's not the woman I married all those years ago, and I've come to terms with that. Once the alimony and child support are done, I'll be a new man with a great job and a great future. I just have to get through this rough patch. I can't believe how strong you are, Ethan, Olivia said, her admiration clear. You never whine or complain about what's happened to you. You never look like you're drowning in bills, even though I know how much you're paying your lawyers every month. You hold your head high, do your job, and everyone here respects you for it. Thank you, Olivia. You know, over all the months we've been having lunch together, you've been wonderful company. I'll have to figure out a way to repay you for that. I really appreciate it, and I hope I haven't given you any reason to think otherwise. Ethan, you're the only man I can talk to without wondering if there's another motive. You look me in the eye, not at my chest. You share your life with me, and you've never once asked me to keep it all to myself. You must know I would never risk our friendship by talking about you to others. I never even considered it, Olivia. I guess I just see you as a friend, and friends don't do that kind of thing, at least true friends don't. Thank you, Ethan. That's one of the nicest things you've ever said. You're welcome, Olivia. But there's one thing you should know. What's that? I do look at your chest when you're not paying attention, he said with a chuckle. She laughed. Oh, you fooled me. They're the only thing that ever seems to get a man's attention. Wrong. There's so much about Olivia Bennet that I find attractive. Actually, I've been trying to work up the courage to ask you out. You have? She asked, surprised. Well, why don't you? I think I just did, Ethan said. It'll be somewhere nice and quiet, with great food and a decent wine list. I'd love to, she exclaimed. You name the time and place and I'll be there. How about 6 this Saturday? I'll pick you up at your place if you give me your address. Really? Saturday at 6? You're serious? Ethan grinned. Very serious. I'd love to take my favorite lady out to dinner. Have you ever been to the Copper Spoon? No, isn't that the place you were going to have Caleb's birthday dinner? Yes, but this time I think it'll be a lot more fun. I'll be ready. Count on it, she said excitedly. As Saturday evening approached, Ethan felt a sense of renewed energy. For the first time in years, he was genuinely looking forward to a date. He picked up Olivia at her apartment right on time. She looked stunning in a simple but elegant navy blue dress. The evening was filled with laughter, good food, and easy conversation. Both of them felt a connection growing stronger with every passing minute. Ethan realized he hadn't felt this happy in years. Olivia brought a sense of calm and joy to his life that he hadn't experienced in a long time. As the evening ended, he walked her to her door. I had an amazing time, Ethan, Olivia said with a warm smile. So did I. Thank you for saying yes, he replied. She leaned in and kissed him softly on the cheek. Good night, Ethan. I hope we can do this again soon. Good night, Olivia, he said, his heart lighter than it had been in years as he walked back to his car. The next morning, Ethan felt a sense of clarity as he sipped his coffee in the quiet of his kitchen. His date with Olivia had been a turning point. For the first time since his divorce, he was beginning to feel like he could truly move forward with his life. But there was still one more unresolved issue he needed to address: his sons. Later that afternoon, Ethan called Nathan and Caleb into the living room for a family meeting. The boys sat down, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. All right, guys, Ethan began, leaning forward on the couch. It's time I talk to you about some important changes. I've been trying to give your mom the chance to come back to this family emotionally, but it's clear that's not going to happen. I've come to realize that the marriage I once had no longer exists. The boys exchanged glances but stayed silent as Ethan continued. I've already filed for divorce. The papers will be finalized next week. That's going to bring some big changes for all of us, Ethan said, his tone steady but serious. The way the law works, your mom will have custody of both of you until you're 18. Nathan, that's only a few months away for you, but Caleb, you still have about 2 years. Ethan paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. I'll need to move out of the house and find another place. I've already been looking at apartments, and I think I've found one. Once the divorce is finalized, we'll divide the assets, and I'm assuming the house will be sold. We'll split the proceeds, which should help me find something more suitable. I'll likely have to pay alimony and child support, but your college tuition and board are already covered, and those funds can't be touched for anything else until you finish your education. Nathan finally spoke up. Dad, Caleb and I saw this coming. We wish it hadn't ended up this way, but Mom gave up on us for some reason. I'm really angry with her, and I know Caleb feels the same. If we have to live with her, it's not going to be easy for her. Ethan nodded. I appreciate you both standing by me, but don't make things harder than they already are. Just get through these next few months, and you'll have the freedom to do what you want. I'm not sure how your mom will take my decision, but it might not be pretty. Just be careful not to do anything that could make things worse. I guess we'll have to see how she reacts when you tell her, Caleb said with frustration, while Nathan nodded in agreement. Ethan realized he couldn't delay telling Emily about his decision any longer. Although the paperwork wouldn't be ready until Wednesday of the following week, he intended to talk to her that evening. Emily came home around 7 that evening, her briefcase in one hand and her phone in the other. She barely acknowledged Ethan's presence as she walked through the door. If anything had broken him, it was this. Ethan abandoned the speech he had been rehearsing and followed her to their bedroom. There's something you need to know, Emily, he said, standing in the doorway as she took off her jacket. Not now, Ethan. I'm tired and hungry. We can talk later, she replied dismissively. No, not later. Now, he snapped. That got her attention. What's so damn important that it can't wait? She retorted angrily. Yesterday, I filed for divorce, Ethan said evenly. The paperwork will be available on Wednesday for your signature. I suggest you get a lawyer to represent you. You what? She shouted, her voice rising with disbelief. I said I filed for divorce. The grounds are irreconcilable differences, he repeated calmly. I don't believe you. This is no time for some stupid joke. Ethan, it's no joke, Emily. I'm deadly serious. You've completely abandoned this family over the past year, and I've had enough. I'll be moving out tonight. You can't be serious. You're going to divorce me just because I have a job? Emily asked, her face a picture of disbelief. For the past several months, that's all you've had, Ethan replied. I'm no longer interested in trying to fix this marriage. Apparently, neither are you. You bastard, she yelled, her face twisting in rage. You think you can just walk away after 20 years? I'll fight you with everything I've got. You've been jealous of me and my success ever since I started working, and now you think you can just toss me aside like I'm nothing? Well, I've got news for you. I'll get a lawyer, and I'll fight you tooth and nail. You had your chance to fix things, Emily, Ethan said calmly. But you chose to shut me out, along with your sons. I put up with it for as long as I could, but tonight was just another example of how little we mean to you. I'll drop off the paperwork on Wednesday. In the meantime, I'm going to grab a few things from the bathroom and leave. I've already packed most of the clothes I'll need. Ethan left her ranting behind and began packing the rest of his belongings. He stopped by Nathan's room, where both boys were sitting together, looking dejected. I assume you heard some of that, Ethan said. Yeah, hard not to when she's yelling like that, Caleb replied. I've got my cell, so you know how to reach me. I'll be staying at the Crestwood Apartments until I can finalize a more permanent place. Stay in touch, guys. I can't tell you what to do about your mom, other than remember she's your mother, not some monster. She's really upset with me right now, but I don't think it'll affect you too much. Just keep your cool. If things get out of hand, call me. Okay? Okay, Dad, Nathan said. We get it. After what we heard, I wouldn't be able to live with that either. Ethan and his sons exchanged handshakes and hugs before he left, heading downstairs to the garage. Within 5 minutes, he was on the road, heading into the uncertain world of separation and divorce. It wasn't going to be an easy journey, but he felt a sense of relief for the first time in years. The following week passed in a blur for Ethan as he adjusted to his new reality. His temporary apartment at Crestwood was small but clean and comfortable, offering him a quiet place to think and plan his next steps. He spent his evenings organizing paperwork, consulting with his lawyer, and reflecting on the choices that had brought him to this point. Midweek, as promised, Ethan delivered the divorce paperwork to Emily. She barely looked at him as she accepted the envelope, her expression a mixture of anger and resentment. There were no further outbursts, but the tension in the room was palpable. Meanwhile, Ethan found solace in his budding relationship with Olivia. They continued meeting for lunch at work, their conversations growing deeper and more personal. Olivia's warmth and support were a stark contrast to the hostility he faced at home, and he began to look forward to their time together more and more. On Friday evening, Ethan called his sons to check in. "How's everything going?" he asked Nathan, who answered the call. "We're doing okay, Dad," Nathan replied. "Mom's been tense, but she hasn't really said much to us. Caleb's been keeping his distance." "That's probably for the best," Ethan said. "Just hang in there. Things will get easier once everything's finalized." "I know," Nathan said, his voice steady. "How are you doing?" "I'm good," Ethan replied honestly. "It's a big change, but I think it was the right move." After a few more minutes of catching up, Ethan ended the call, reassured that his sons were managing the situation as well as could be expected. That weekend, Ethan and Olivia had their second official date. This time, she invited him over to her apartment for dinner. The atmosphere was cozy and intimate, with candles casting a warm glow over the table. Olivia had prepared a seafood dish that Ethan declared was better than any restaurant. As they sipped wine and talked late into the evening, Olivia hesitated before asking a question that had clearly been on her mind. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said, setting down his glass. "What's on your mind? Do you ever think about what's next for you? I mean, beyond the divorce?" Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I do. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can focus on myself, on what makes me happy. I've spent so many years putting everyone else first. It's strange, but it's also exciting." Olivia smiled. "You deserve that. And if you ever need someone to talk to, or share those happy moments with, you know where to find me." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "I think I've already found that person," he said softly. The following weeks brought a sense of stability to Ethan's life. He finalized the details of the divorce and began searching for a more permanent home. His relationship with Olivia continued to flourish, and the boys seemed to be adapting well to the changes. One afternoon at work, Olivia approached Ethan with a nervous but excited expression. "Hey, Ethan," she said, holding an envelope. "Guess what? What's that?" he asked, curious. "I got the promotion," she exclaimed, handing him the envelope with her new job title, HR Manager, printed at the top. "That's fantastic news," Ethan said, genuinely thrilled for her. "Congratulations." "Thanks," Olivia said, beaming. "I couldn't have done it without your support. You've been such a great friend." "And more." Ethan smiled, feeling a rare sense of optimism about the future. For the first time in years, he felt like everything was finally falling into place. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan began to truly settle into his new life. He found a comfortable 2-bedroom condo not far from his workplace, with enough space for Nathan and Caleb to stay over whenever they wanted. He carefully furnished it to feel like home, adding personal touches that reflected his newfound independence. Nathan and Caleb started visiting regularly, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere of their father's new place. The tension they had felt living with their mother was absent, and they seemed genuinely happy to spend time with Ethan. One Friday evening, Nathan came over for dinner and brought up a topic that had been weighing on his mind. "Dad, Caleb and I were talking," Nathan said as they cleared the dishes. "We're thinking about asking to live with you full-time once the divorce is finalized." Ethan paused, surprised. "You really want to do that? What about your mom?" Mom, Nathan said carefully. "We love her, but it's hard living there. She's always stressed, and she doesn't really spend time with us. It's like we're an afterthought." Ethan nodded, understanding their perspective. "I'd love to have you both here, but we'll need to work out the legal details." I'll talk to my lawyer about it. Thanks, Dad, Nathan said, his relief evident. It means a lot to us. Meanwhile, Ethan and Olivia continued to grow closer. Their relationship had blossomed into something meaningful, and they had begun discussing the future in more concrete terms. One Saturday morning, as they strolled through a local park, Olivia broached the subject. Ethan, she began hesitantly, have you ever thought about what it would be like if we lived together? Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. I have, he admitted, and honestly, it feels like the natural next step. But I want to make sure it's what you really want. Olivia smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. It is. You make me happier than I've ever been, Ethan. I want to build a life with you. Ethan reached for her hand, his heart full. Then let's do it. Let's take this next step together. By the time the divorce was finalized, Ethan felt like a new man. The legal battles were over, and he had gained custody of Nathan and Caleb after they expressed their strong desire to live with him. Emily, while initially resistant, eventually agreed after realizing that the boys' happiness depended on it. Ethan's condo became a true family home, filled with laughter, shared meals, and a sense of togetherness that had been missing for so long. Olivia moved in shortly after, seamlessly blending into their lives and forming a close bond with Nathan and Caleb. One evening, as they all sat around the dinner table, Caleb looked up from his plate with a thoughtful expression. You know, Dad, I haven't seen you this happy in a long time. Ethan smiled, his eyes meeting Olivia's. That's because, for the first time in years, I feel like everything is exactly as it should be. Nathan raised his glass of iced tea. To new beginnings, he said with a grin. To new beginnings, Ethan echoed, clinking his glass against his son's and Olivia's. Ethan Walker had faced his share of struggles, but with determination, support, and love, he had rebuilt his life from the ground up. And as he looked around the table at the people who mattered most to him, he knew he had everything he needed to move forward with hope and joy.